In this tutorial, we're gonna have a look how we can create the camera shake. If I just go ahead and then click on this play button, takes damage, you will see camera will shake as you can see. So you can just shake your camera a little low. I just make it more intensely to able to see. You can just make it less. And I especially want to thanks for donating in this month on Patreon, Darryl Harris. And if you guys want to do that, you can go in the description and you can check that how what you can expect to get on my Patreon. And also I have a beautiful course, and you can get it with more or less by taking membership. You can go and check that out on Unity 6 and C# programming. So let's get into this topic. Firstly, what we have to do, we need to install Cinemachine camera in our project. In order to do that, go to window in the top, then scroll down to says package manager, and we need to install that. So in the left bar in package manager, you're gonna see this Unity registry. So select that first and then scroll down to the bottom. So you're gonna be something over here. So scroll down and find Cinemachine camera. So I have it over here, and you're gonna see install button in the left side in this over here. So just click on that in order to install Cinemachine in your project, or you can simply find Cinemachine camera in the top by typing name of it. So in our case Cinemachine, and I already have installed it, so that's why I'm not gonna do it twice. And once we done, we can just click cut this tab, and we are ready to create that. And in order to create that, we need to move over to this hierarchy, right click or hit this plus icon, then go to Cinemachine targeted cameras, and then select this 2D camera. So just go to hierarchy, right click or hit this plus icon right over here, then go to Cinemachine targeted cameras, and then 2D camera. And as soon as we create it, the Cinemachine camera just gets added up in our hierarchy. And I'm going to drag my Cinemachine camera in the top of my hierarchy so I can see all the time. And what we have to do now, if we just go ahead and then click on this play button, you will see our camera just not gonna follow our player game object. So what we need to do, we need to follow our player game object as well. Just have a look on this. So now if I just move left and right, as you can see, camera is not moving with our player game object. So we need to follow our player game object. So let's get out of play mode and then select the Cinemachine camera in the hierarchy, go over to inspector, then Cinemachine camera, just go over to this Cinemachine camera component, and over here we can see tracking target and it says none transform. So what we want to do, we just want to follow our player game object, or we just want to target our player game object wherever player goes, where our main camera also need to follow that. So that's why in tracking target we need to drag our player game object that we want to follow. So in our case I just want to follow our player game object. So I'm going to select my player game object in the hierarchy and drag it into that slot says tracking target. As soon as we drag it, our camera just sets up in the middle center of this player game object. And now if we just go ahead and then click on this play button in the top, you will see our camera just gonna follow our player game object. So wherever our player game object will go, main camera just, or the Cinemachine just gonna go in that position. As you can see, uh, basically it's showing, and this is pretty much cool thing. So now we have the follow, and let's get out of play mode, and we need to make our shake by now. So select the Cinemachine camera in the hierarchy, then go over to inspector, and in the bottom just click on this add component. Sorry, not add component, basically we need to move over to this Cinemachine camera. I'm really sorry. So just move over to this Cinemachine camera component, and in the bottom you can see noise and it says none. So just click there and then click on this basic multi-channel plugin. And what we have to do now, as soon as we just added basic multi-channel plugin, we can see a Cinemachine basic multi-channel plugin in the bottom component just added up. So just click there, and then you need to move over to this noise profile, and it says non noise setting. So just click on this settings icon icon in the right side. Just click on that and then go over to this presets and then select this 60 sec. And now we can see amplitude gain is 1 as well as this frequency gain is 1. So if we just go ahead and then hit this play button in the top to play our game, you will see our camera just gonna shake right after the game start. Why? Because this amplitude gain and the is 1, so that's why. And we can just play around with this number. We can see right after the game start, camera just started shaking, and we can just play around with these properties. We can just we can increase this amplitude gain to just shake more intensely, and we can just increase this frequency gain as well to just shake more intensely. So now let's suppose you just want to stop shaking. So what you basically have to do, you need to set this amplitude gain to 0. So as soon as we set it to 0, we can see camera just stop shaking. So what we basically need to do, we need a reference of the Cinemachine basic multi-channel plugin of our Cinemachine camera, and then we can set this value in order to shake our camera. So whenever we just want to shake, so we're gonna set this amplitude gain number to something like 3 in order to shake. And once we just want to stop shaking, then we can just set back this amplitude gain to something 0 in order to stop shaking. So we need a reference of this Cinemachine camera. Then we can just go over to this Cinemachine basic multi-channel plugin, and we can just set this value through our code. So we're gonna create a script in order to set this variable. So let's this properties. So let's get out of play mode and let's create a script for shaking our camera. So just move over to this project tab, then assets, right click on assets, create, and then click on this mono behavior script, or you can just scroll down a bit, says scripting, and then choose this mono behavior script, because we're gonna attach this script to our game object in a hierarchy. So that's why I'm gonna do it inside this Cinemachine camera game object. You can just attach that script to any game object you like in the hierarchy, or you can just simply create a separate game object for your script. But I'm gonna attach my camera shake script to this Cinemachine camera. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna attach, but before we do, I'm gonna set this amplitude gain in the inspector of this Cinemachine basic multi-channel plugin component to 0. So right after the game start, it will not shake. And frequency gain, I'm just gonna increase a little bit, something like 3, to just shake it more intensely. And I already created a camera shake script, and just name that script to something like camera shake. I already have it over here. So I'm gonna select my camera shake script and drag it over to this add component section. So I just attach this camera shake script to this Cinemachine camera. You can just attach that script to any game object in your hierarchy you would like to go with, or you can just create a separate game object for this camera shake script. So now let's open up our camera shake. So first thing what we need a reference of the Cinemachine camera. Then we can set this amplitude gain in this basic multi-channel plugin. So our just camera just gonna be set. So let's open up our camera shake script by double clicking on it. And before you grab the reference, make sure you just go to top of your class and use this. Basically you need to include this namespaces using unity dot Cinemachine. So make sure you just include this namespace in top of your class using unity.cinemachine. So just make sure you just do that. And now we are ready to grab the reference. So the component we just want to grab the reference is our Cinemachine camera. So that's why we're gonna type public, so we can see underneath our camera shake script, and the component we're looking for is our Cinemachine camera. So we need to type this Cinemachine camera, and we have to name it what we want to name it. So I'm gonna call it something like Cinemachine camera, and let's close that up with semicolon, and we're gonna press down Ctrl S to save our script. Now let's move over to Unity. So underneath our camera shake script, you will see and field will appear says Cinemachine camera. So what we need to do right there, we need to drag this Cinemachine camera into that slot. So we're gonna have the reference, and then we can just set that amplitude gain to any number that we would like to go with or just want to shake. So just wait for to compile, and once it done, we are ready to grab the reference. and now our camera script just gets compiled, and we can see Cinemachine camera, it says none Cinemachine camera. So what we need to do right now, we need to take this Cinemachine camera and drag it right into that slot. So we're gonna have the reference, and now as you can see we have Cinemachine camera, basically this, and we are ready to go over to this Cinemachine basic multi-channel plugin, and we're gonna set this amplitude gain number to something else in order to shake. So let's open up our camera shake script by double clicking on it, and I'm gonna make a shake function in the bottom. You can make it anywhere you like, and we're gonna call this function from another class or another script. So that's why we need to make this function public, because we're gonna call this function through our player where the player just taking damage. So we're gonna shake our camera at that moment, so that's why. So we're gonna make this function public, and for function we need to type this void, and we have to name the function what we want to name it. So I'm gonna call it something like shake and make first bracket and then some curly brackets, and this function over here as a first argument it's gonna take in it's gonna take an argument. So first thing it's gonna take float, that will be float, and we're gonna this will be our intensity, so we're gonna call it intensity. And the second thing, it's gonna take the duration, with how much duration we just want to shake our camera. So comma, it's also gonna take a float, another float parameter, and that will be duration. So what we basically have done over here, we just passed two argument intensity, and later on we can just replace this intensity with any number we like. Basically this will be amplitude gain, something like we can set it to 2, we can set it to 5 to shake our camera. So later on we're gonna replace this intensity with real number, with how much we just want to shake our camera intensely, and it's also take the duration, and we're gonna replace this duration with another number, something like 0.2, 0.2, 0.3, or with how much duration we just want to shake our camera. So this is the thing. And what we need to do now, we're going to move over to Cinemachine. So we will type Cinemachine camera. So basically what we're doing, we're just going over to Cinemachine, and then we're gonna get the component. So we're gonna get component. So make sure you just type get component. In older version we just need to type get Cinemachine component, but in Unity 6 you need to use that, which is get component, and then make these arrows, and over here we need to pass the component name. So the component we just want to move over our basic multi-channel purlin. So we're gonna type basic multi-channel purlin, Cinemachine basic multi-channel purlin, and then make this first brackets, and we're going to close that up with semicolon, and we're going to store this component into another basic multi-channel purlin. So we're going to type this Cinemachine basic multi-channel purlin, and we're going to call it something like purlin, and let's set equal to this. So basically what we're doing over here, we're just going over to Cinemachine, and we're just getting the Cinemachine basic multi-channel purlin, and we're storing this component into another Cinemachine basic multi-channel purlin, and into this purlin variable. So basically we're just moving over to this Cinemachine camera, and by this Cinemachine camera we're just getting the component, which is this Cinemachine basic multi-channel purlin, and then we're just storing this component into another Cinemachine basic multi-channel purlin, and we just name it purlin, as you can see. So we just stored this Cinemachine basic multi-channel purlin component into this purlin, and now we are ready to go ahead and then set these parameters. So firstly we will move over to purlin, and then we're gonna access our amplitude gain. So we're gonna say purlin dot amplitude gain, and we're gonna set equal to our intensity, and then close that up with semicolon. And in as an intensity we can choose any number, something like, let's suppose later on we just pass intensity with 2, so this one just gonna be 2, so our amplitude gain just gonna be 2. So what we firstly doing, we're just moving over to this Cinemachine basic multi-channel purlin, and we stored this component into another purlin, and after that we just moving over to this Cinemachine basic multi-channel purlin, or that purlin, as you can see, and accessing the amplitude gain. Basically we just accessing this amplitude gain, and we just setting equal to intensity, and let's suppose intensity we assume 2, so this amplitude gain just gonna be 2. If we just pass as an intensity something like 2, so this purlin dot amplitude gain just gonna be 2, because we directly setting it, as you can see, purlin dot amplitude gain equal to intensity. And now what we're gonna do, we're going to create another variable to just keep track of when we need to stop shaking. So we're going to go to top of our class, and that doesn't need to be public field, so we're going to make it private instead, and that will be float. And this variable right over here, it's just going to take when we need to stop shaking, so it's going to be duration, something like that, and we're going to call it shake time, and we're going to close that up with semicolon. And now we're going to move over to this shake function, and in this shake function, whenever we're going to call this shake function, we're going to set this shake time. So we're going to go over to that shake time equal to our duration, and let's close that out with semicolon. And let's suppose as a letter you just pass this duration something like zero point 0.2, so this shake time over here just gonna be 0.2, because we assume it that duration we just pass 0.2, so this shake time just gonna be 0.2 because we directly setting it, as you can see, shake time equal to our duration. So basically we just created this shake time variable in order to you can say simply say to just keep track of when we need to stop shaking. So we're gonna press down Control S in order to save our script. Now we're gonna move over to Unity. So we also need to call this shake function, and what this shake function is just gonna do, firstly it's gonna move over to that basic multi-channel plugin, and then we're gonna access the amplitude gain. As you can see, we just accessing that, and we're setting equal to intensity. Basically we're just shaking our camera, and we're gonna call this function when player takes damage or collide with something. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna select our player game object in the hierarchy, and let's open up the player script by double clicking on it, and we're gonna call that function once we take damage. So let's go to or let's call it when we just jump for testing. Let's do it when where we taking damage over here. As you can see, we just taking damage max health if it's lesser than or equal to 0, and we just taking damage over here, you can simply say. So we're gonna call that function over here. So in order to call that function, we're gonna use this find any object by type, and then make this arrows, and in this arrows you need to pass the script name that you just want to call the function. So in our case, we're gonna move over to this camera shake, and then we're gonna call this shake function, and shake function just gonna shake our camera. So let's go to our player script. So in these arrows we need to pass the script name that we just want to go that script. So in our case, camera shake. So we're gonna type camera shake and then make this first bracket, and there in camera shake script we just created the shake function. So let's call that shake function over here. So we're gonna type dot, and we're gonna call the shake function, and let's make first bracket. So as a first argument, it's gonna take the intensity with how much intense you just want to shake your camera. So I'm gonna pass something like 2f. Also comma, it's gonna take the duration. So just type comma, and it's gonna take the duration with how much time you just want to shake your camera. So I'm gonna pass something like 0.2f, a little low, a little or small number we just want to shake, and we're gonna close that up with semicolon. So what we doing, firstly we just going over to that camera shake. As you can see, find any object by type, and into arrows we need to pass the script name. So in our case, camera shake, and then we just calling the shake function over here. So when we just calling the shake function when we taking damage, as you can see, player just taking damage over here, and we just calling the function. So basically we just moving over to this camera shake, and then we just calling this as shake function. And now we're gonna move over to player script, and let's press down Control S to save our script, and let's move to Unity. So whenever we're gonna take damage, you will see that function will trigger, and we do know that what that function is really doing. It's just shaking our camera, or we just calling the shake function in order to shake our camera. So now if we just go ahead, but before we go ahead, I'm gonna increase the max health of our player something like 50, and let's click on this play button in the top in order to play our game. So I just increase the max health of this player game object for testing purposes, and we do know once we take damage, the shake function we just calling the shake function. So let's have a look on that. So whenever we're gonna take damage, so just give it a moment to this saw to go up. And now if we just take damage, let's give it a moment. Sorry, I'm gonna click on this pause button, and I'm gonna select my player game object, and I'm gonna move it somewhere over here. something like this. And now if I just click on this pause button, we can see sorry, so once we take damage, so as you can see, once we taking damage, basically we just collided with the fire, we can see that camera is shaking forever and it's not stopping. So if we just select our Cinemachine camera game object in the hierarchy and then go over to inspectors, we can see amplitude gain in this Cinemachine basic multi-channel is 2, because as an intensity we just passed 2. So what we need to do now, we need to stop shaking our camera for a little moment. So we just want to shake our camera for a little moment, and after that we need to stop shaking. So basically what we have to do, we need to set back this amplitude gain to 0. So once we set back, as you can see, camera just stops shaking. So we need to do that. So let's get out of play mode, and we just created a shake time variable as you seen. So we need to just use that to in order to stop our shaking. So let's select Cinemachine camera, and let's open up the open up the camera shake script by double clicking on it. And for that we're gonna use this update function. We do know update function runs every single frame, so we're gonna keep track of when we need to stop shaking. So we need to keep track of in update function. So we're gonna move over to this update function. Oh, and over here we're gonna check if, so make first bracket and some curly brackets. So what we want to check over here, we need to stop shaking, or we just need to keep track of when we need to stop shaking. So we're gonna type this shake time if it's greater than or equal to 0, greater than, or we're gonna say something like 0f. And we do know once we call this shake function over here, we just setting shake time equal to duration, and duration as you seen we pass 0.2. so this shake time just gonna be 0.2 right away once we shake our camera. So that's why we just created this shake time variable in order to just keep track of when we just started shaking our camera. And over here we checking if shake time is greater than 0f. If that is the case, we do know once we shake our camera, this shake time just gonna be 0.2, something like that, because as a duration we just pass 0.2. so this shake time just gonna be greater than 0f, because 0.2 is greater than 0f. so in that moment what we need to do, we need to stop shaking. But before we stop shaking, we're gonna subtract from this shake time minus equal some unit. So we're gonna pass time dot delta time, which basically means change in frame rate. Firstly we're checking if the shake time is greater than 0f. We do know once we shake our camera, the shake time just gonna be 0.2. so 0.2 is greater than 0f. Then what we're doing, we're just subtracting from this shake time with this minus equal time dot delta time. So we just subtracting this shake time from this shake time. And we do know this shake time, once we just basically subtract from this shake time over again and again, so this shake time at a one moment it's gonna hit 0. so when this shake time just gonna hit 0, then what we're gonna do, we're gonna set back amplitude gain to 0. And we do know once we set back to 0, our camera just gonna stop shaking. So over here we're gonna check, so we will check if shake time is lesser than or equal to 0, something like that. If that is the case, we're gonna make some curly brackets. Then what we're gonna do, we're gonna firstly we need to move over to this Cinemachine basic multi-channel Berlin component, and we need to set this amplitude gain to back to 0. So we're gonna do that. So we're gonna copy this line of code over here by Control C, and we're gonna paste it by Control V. So what we're doing, firstly going over to that Cinemachine, and then we just getting the Cinemachine basic multi-channel Berlin. Basically we just taking this component, which is Cinemachine basic multi-channel Berlin component, and we storing that component into this Berlin. As you can see, Cinemachine, another Cinemachine basic multi-channel Berlin. And after that we just going over to Berlin, and then we accessing the amplitude gain. Basically we just accessing this amplitude gain, and now what we're gonna do, we're gonna set equal to 0. So we're gonna set equal to 0f, and let's close that up with semicolon. So we do know, so once this shake time just hits lesser than or equal to 0, it's became, then we just going over to that component, and we taking that Cinemachine basic multi-channel Berlin component, and we storing that component into this Berlin. And after that we just accessing the amplitude gain, basically this one, and then we setting equal to 0, as you can see. So now if we just press down Control S in order to save our script, now let's move over to Unity. You will see our camera just gonna shake a little moment, and after that our camera will stop shaking. So just let's have a look. Let's have a look on that. So we're just taking that camera and then we're just accessing this amplitude gain and we're setting it to 0. So let's click on this play button in the top in order to play our game and have a look on that. So just wait. So now if we just take damage, so once we take, as you can see, camera just shaking a little moment, and after that the camera just gets stopped shaking. So I'm gonna take my player game object. Sorry, I just did mistake. So I'm gonna take my player game object and let's move it somewhere around here. And now if we just click on this play button, I hope you are able to see, or we can just increase the intensity to just shake it more intensely to able to see that change. And now if we take, we can see we just getting, so the camera is shaking. I hope you get I hope you are able to see. So I'm gonna get out of play mode and let's basically put intensity a more twice. So we just calling the save function over here. So I'm gonna set it to something like 10f, and duration I'm gonna set something like 0.5, and let's press down Control S to save our script. And now let's move over to Unity. So basically what we have done there, we just increase our intensity, so our camera just gonna shake with more intensely, so we can see that thing. So now let's click on this play button in the top and have a look on that. Sorry, let's have a look on that. So our, so let's take damage. So as soon as we take damage, as you can see, the camera is shaking more intensely. So you can just down the value and that will be fine. So I'm gonna get out of play mode. I hope you get the idea that how you can do with Unity 6, and I will see you in the next tutorial. So goodbye for now.